Brandon Staley, get out.
I hate you.
We hate you. We said it last year.
I hate you.
We hated you when you gave up like over 30-point lead, lost it to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a difference between a head coach with an offensive mindset who used to be a quarterback in Doug Peterson, instilling confidence in his young quarterback, which is the opposite of what Brandon Staley does on a weekly basis with the uber talented Justin Herbert. Like,
there's just no universe.
The offense looks better. The offense
it certainly does.
Look better with Kellen Moore, and and they're moving the ball.
But wouldn't you know, the defense does not look better.
How is that possible?
The defense does not look better. The defense, J.C. Jackson is getting torched on multiple routes a game. Joey Bosa is not healthy again.
Yeah.
And they lost to the Titans.
Yeah, in overtime again. But like, this is the problem. Staley, when it comes to do or die situations, he crumbles, and that's now Herbert is internalizing that, and that's what is so scary about the situation. Like, get this guy out of the building.
And he
doesn't have a winning mentality. He's abandoned all of that analytics stuff that he got famous for in his first year as a head coach because he's run scared. Like, what? Do you have a philosophy or do you not have a philosophy? What is your actual identity that you're instilling in the team? Because you're a defensive guy, and you put your receivers one-on-one with Tyreek Hill in the first game, and they torched you.
Well, right, and that's the other thing too. Is like you're exactly right in the sense of, we just gave up 34 points or whatever to the Dolphins. Maybe we shouldn't have had our two linebackers 1v1 on Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Maybe that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And then
even J.C. Jackson was getting burned.
Absolutely, he was getting torched.
But we saw Bill Belichick. He took Tyreek Hill away. He did. They were creative. Right. They were having at some points 3 safeties back, and you didn't know if they were going to come up or drop back. That is,
you have to create an illusion of
exactly.
unsafety or the lack of safety for a guy like Tyreek Hill. Which, and if Tyreek Hill is oh look, Kenneth Murray is right there, I'm going to ruin his life right now.
Yeah,
there's nobody else. Oh, okay, that's the mindset of a guy who
he's playing not to lose.
Either playing not to lose, but who is also sort of convinced that I think there's a part of it that he has this conviction that we're not seeing what he's seeing.
Well, let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah, whereas I think what is clearly happening is he thinks that, and he's wrong.
Oh, yeah, he's wrong. I mean, and he's pretending this clip is amazing of his press conference here where he basically kind of loses it at a reporter asking a very simple question 2 games into the year about the carryover from their historic playoff collapse, which you can put at the feet of Brandon Staley. And notice how he keeps saying, the players aren't thinking about this. This is a different team. The players aren't thinking about this. Well, that's not what the question necessarily is. I'm not sure exactly how the reporter frames it, but
you sure about that?
Yeah. The question really is about why is this consistent between years, and the one person we're drawing a connection to is you. This is on you, buddy. The fact that you collapsed last year and you're 0-2 this year in games that you could have won, and you weren't able to step up. He kind of you can tell he's on the hot seat here. He gets a little upset.
A lot of people sort of wondered whether that Jacksonville loss would carry.
I'm not worried about the Jacksonville loss. The Jacksonville loss hasn't carried on to the season whatsoever. If you've seen our training camp, or you've seen the way we played in the first 2 games, it hasn't had an impact on our team whatsoever. Our team is connected. Our team has played its heart out in 2 games, and we've lost 2 tough games. But it has nothing to do with the Jacksonville game. And if you ask anyone in our locker room, it has nothing to do with the Jacksonville game. And that's just the truth. It's a convenient storyline for you and for everybody else, but it's not the truth. We've lost 2 tough games, but the guys in that locker room, the men in that locker room, they are finishers, and they have what it takes, and we're excited to prove ourselves. Yeah, we just lost a game in overtime, Jeff. So how do you think the mood is? How do you think the mood is? How do you think it is? It's tough. It's tough. It's a tough group in there. There's a lot of pride in that room. Okay? And we put a lot into this, and we got a good football team. And so we've lost 2 tough games. We've got to bounce back, learn from our mistakes, and be ready for Minnesota. All right, guys.
So no one's
Sounds
questioning.
like a guy who is not thinking about the Jacksonville game.
Yeah, totally.
Sounds like a guy who's extremely not bothered by
I
the
am
Jacksonville.
totally over it. Okay?
I have never thought about the Jacksonville game ever again.
Okay, I blocked you. I removed all of our photos from Instagram because I am totally over you. Okay?
Does
You get
anyone
it?
else want to mention the Jacksonville game?
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
anyone else have a question about the Jacksonville game?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even thinking about it. No one in that locker room is thinking. Like, I hate when coaches do this because no one is saying that the Chargers aren't talented. In fact, the opposite. Everyone is saying
That's the confusing part, is that they are.
yes,
That's the confusing part.
They are talented. They are talented. And oddly, they're not out of it because the Chiefs are 1-1.
Right.
So, like, the sky is not falling, but with this, they will never get where they need to be with this guy as head coach. Never.
And the issue is, as you're saying, Emma, which was not the case last year as much. I mean, there's always been more questions about the defense. Certainly, in terms of personnel, in terms of execution. But there are a few games where they did show flashes last year. The issue last year was how uncreative the offense was. Now the offense is definitely looking more creative. Like, there's definitely more coming from it. I'm like seeing
Exactly.
there's more dimension to it. The issue is that with this personnel that they have, it's not as if this defense is bad. Like, I in terms of full strength, I know that Joey Bosa is battling injury, but if you tell me that a defense is Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James at safety, J.C. Jackson, who at the other stops in his career was a good corner, and for some reason has forgotten how to play the position, which again I think is also an indictment on Brandon Staley and on the guy who
came from New England. I just mentioned how they game plan versus how
and he was like a Pro Bowler in New England. He was like a very good corner in New England. So
they know how to scout, develop, and draft corners.
Absolutely, and you saw that with the Christian Gonzalez laying out for that great pick again.
I was happy to see that.
Yeah, I think exactly. Like, they know what they're doing in that regard. So to see this group of guys look this hapless against I'm not kidding. I was saying this to you. I've said this to you on other episodes and off the show. The Titans have the worst offensive line in the league. Ryan Tannehill is not getting any younger. They have maybe one of the worst skill position groups in the league, besides an aging 31-year-old DeAndre Hopkins and Chigakonkwo, who is like an inline tight end. I love Chigakonkwo. He's not burning you down offensively.
Although I was happy to see Treylon Burks actually get
he had a few explosive plays.
Had a big play, but even Treylon Burks,
that should not be enough to stifle this defense. It should not be enough to this offense. This Titans offense is not designed to beat this Chargers defense, and somehow it's still happening.
I mean, the problem with the Titans is that they have the slowest wide receiver room in the NFL.
Yeah, right. There's no speed. Exactly.
There's no speed.
There's no speed.
They're all possession guys, and that's not tenable for their championship hopes. But let's be realistic. The Titans are it's a question mark if they get to the playoffs.
Exactly.
So they're rebuilding. They're trying to figure out what they do with this new general manager now that they got rid of Robinson, thankfully. But a defensive head coach should be able to shut down one of the three worst receiving corps in the NFL.
That's I think what it is you're a defensive minded head coach. You were a defensive coordinator. That's your calling card. And you're losing the offensive battle. The offense is getting one over on your team, the Tennessee Titans offense.
Yeah.
And you're losing in the final seconds. It's just there are only so many more ways Brandon Staley can devise unique ways for this team to lose before he has to be shown the door.
I'm going to read this from the Ringer, too. I mean, these are just some of the things that he did just to remind myself. To have these gaffes. Staley punted on 4th and short near midfield on 2 occasions when the numbers suggested the Chargers should have kept their offense on the field. And that's just the latest proof that Staley's commitment to analytically backed decision-making has been weakened. In his press conference, he pushed back against the notion that blah, 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 blah. We just read that. Staley also made saw that, I should say. Staley also made a key strategic blunder in overtime with Tennessee facing a 3rd and 1 near midfield and needing only a field goal to win the game. Derrick Henry was inexplicably taken off the field. But before the snap, Staley called a timeout to think over his play call. Again, coaching not to lose, scared. That's what the Ringer says as well. It's on point. Allowing the Titans to bring their best player back out. Henry muscled his way to a first down, and a few plays later, Tennessee lined up for the game-winning kick. Those weren't the only signs of a poorly coached team. 3 personal foul penalties extended eventually scoring drives for Tennessee, and a bad challenge of a first down spot cost the Chargers a timeout in the second half. In year 3, Staley is regressing as a head coach.
And that's I also think to the point of, from that piece, that I think is the most fascinating thing, is that this guy who in his first year, I was just thinking was kind of like an interesting, unique sort of nuanced defensive play caller. I kind of thought he was offering some stuff. He was kind of creating his own mold in terms of formations and schemes and things like that. As the article alludes to, if anything, as time has gone by, he's gotten more conservative.
Yes.
And his decision making has become less discerning.
Yep.
Like he's making decisions in game that I think a less experienced coach with maybe more, let's be honest, more guts, more confidence in his team and in his ability would be making.
But that's the point, is like that's how he started off. He
Right,
started off
right.
and all the analytics people were like, hell yeah. But then he shows he doesn't really care about that either. He's just if you had a real ideological commitment to how you want to run a team, you wouldn't abandon one of the hallmarks of your past coaching years just
Right.
because. Yeah. And that's what's
What's the most confounding thing, is that like it wasn't like this before, and you're almost like, what is curdled from year 1 to year 3 where you were like seeming like a shell of yourself as a coach?
100%.